Hello and welcome to We Never Met, the podcast where I have interesting strangers on every single week. Today we have
David Zimmerman, also known as Bigshot Robot.
And we are outdoors.
Yeah.
But we're outdoors because we are in front of one of your murals that you've done. We're in front of the one in Walker's Point. Fear the Deer, the big, which is that the most recent one that you've done?
Yeah.
Mural, mural-wise. And it's a big, I mean, if you haven't seen it, you can watch the video, but I'm sure you've seen it. A big deer. How long did this take you to do?
From beginning to end, the whole project was about a month long, but between sketching and painting, about 88 hours.
That's a lot. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, so when you create murals like this, because I mean, you've done murals before, but not to this size, right? Or have you done?
This is definitely the biggest piece I've done, yeah.
Yeah, so how do you like even conceptualize like what would look good on something this big?
I mean, I definitely came out here and surveyed the wall with my dad.
Okay.
So we kind of measured everything up, so I had like right measurements to sketch to. But
Sure.
I just took a picture of the wall and was like right on my iPad, was able to sketch like right on the wall.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like there would be some things that wouldn't look good at this scale,
right.
You know? Because do they have to be like bigger concepts or like bigger things to look good?
Well, I guess what I tried to keep in mind was like the viewing range of this thing was probably going to be at least, 2 blocks away,
Sure,
if not
yeah.
the freeway all the way back there. So
Yeah.
kind of keeping that in mind, that like small details that you would maybe normally see up close would be less visible. You know?
Sure.
So that's always something to keep in mind, is scale and size of line work and stuff like that.
So like what was the process like? Do you like outline everything first and then like fill in, or do you kind of just start from one side and go?
I wish it was just like run and gun like that.
Yeah.
But this one started out, I had the sketches and stuff. We had the conversation back and forth with the Bucks and Murals, the company that I worked with to create this. And then once we finally picked the final sketch that we were going to go with, I used a projector about 50 feet away from the wall.
Okay.
And then came up here and traced it up on the wall. And
Wow.
then did all the color blocking first, and then came back with the black line work and then highlights on top of that.
Because I feel like doing murals, like you can't be afraid of heights. Like that would be a bad thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's always like something you have to break through pretty quick.
Yeah, because it gets up pretty high up there. What's like the final dimensions? Do you know like how big this is?
I think it was something like 40 by 35 or something like that. I'd have to check, but
yeah. So obviously, a lot of people know you for your art and for what you do. Was that always a big part of your life? Like, did you grow up doing art, or was this kind of like a thing you found and were like, oh, I like this?
I sketched and doodled a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My mom's a quilter, so there was like creativity kind of in our family that way.
Yeah.
So she kind of always pushed me to be crafty or whatever in some way or another.
Yeah.
Like I learned to sew at an early age.
It's a good skill to have.
Yeah, kind of an odd skill, but cool mindset of how to put things together and stuff like that. But she was also a kindergarten teacher too. So like when I was young, I was like into finger painting and stuff like that.
Sure.
I think the first piece of art I made was like my version of a Monet painting.
Really? I feel like that's really sophisticated.
I mean, it wasn't as good as Monet, obviously, like not an impressionist,
Maybe.
but it was definitely like, that's what interested me at first, was like drew me in kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, and then I think I lost it for a little while growing up. I got into music for a while too.
Okay.
So I was playing drums and guitar and stuff like that.
Were you in like a band or anything?
Yeah, I played in a couple bands for a while.
Nice.
Recorded a couple songs and this and that. Kind of played a couple shows across the country.
Oh, really? What band were you? Or bands?
Nothing you'd probably recognize,
No?
but my favorite one was the Soggy Flats. We were like a
Nice.
two-piece blues rock duo.
Oh, that's cool.
So we jammed out pretty hard.
So what made you transition from like, I guess what attracted you to music specifically at that age? Like what were you into? Just the creativity part?
Kind of, creativity. I think collaboration, like the improvisation of it.
Sure.
Like the ability to just like be around other people and like make stuff together.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite things about art and creativity in general, is just like that ability to collaborate.
Yeah.
But instead of, like there's a lot of like alone time when you're creative or creating and making stuff, is like just, smashing it out, whether it's drawing or like producing a song or something. You spend hours just by yourself. So
Right.
like that chance to be with other people and commiserate in that way is kind of cool.
Yeah. Is that what attracted you to doing like murals and stuff? Is that what got you into that?
I think
the
not
teamwork?
necessarily,
No?
because it is a lot of still like alone time.
Yeah.
You know, there are times where I can have friends come and help, or
Yeah.
like assistants and stuff that help come paint. But a lot of it is still like a lot of alone time.
Yeah.
So I think, like the transition back to drawing and painting was at the end of college sort of thing, where I was figuring out what my major was going to be. And I transitioned from architecture to photography to printmaking and graphic design. So like was kind of a slow progression. And then I found illustration as I was graduating and like really dove back into that.
Yeah. Cause I mean, like, so how long have you been doing this, like on that sort of level? Like when you changed in college, how long ago was that?
The end of college was 2012. So about 7 years, like fully got back into drawing. And
you're so good. How is it only 7? I feel like this was like a lifetime thing, you know?
I think it's just like dedicating yourself to a certain style.
Yeah.
Like, I could try, like realism is not my forte. So like if I were to go and try and, draw a bunch of people perfectly, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
I put all my time into learning how to draw this way.
Yeah.
So
what is this way? Like, well, how would you describe your
I don't know. You
style?
could maybe call it like lowbrow or like cartoon or like pop art. Kind of like in that realm of like 90s subculture or like 70s clear line sort of like it's a mixture of like a lot of that.
What do you think like drew you to that sort of style specifically? Were you influenced by, I mean, we're like 90s kids. Yeah. So
definitely. I mean, like a lot of Nickelodeon stuff.
Yeah.
Real Monsters, Rocko's Modern Life. Definitely. Like if I were to pick a few cartoons.
Yeah.
But then there was a lot of like 70s drawings and stuff that I saw from, I think my uncle had a couple like magazines or even like Tintin, which is like a really, like an old comic.
Yeah.
So like that kind of like line work and stuff was simplified artwork in a way. It was like, like color blocking and line work, but still very colorful and things like that. So.
Yeah. So when you're first, like, I guess in college, deciding to do this kind of diving head deep into what you were doing, did you get like, was this what came out right away? Or was there like other things that you tried, like other styles you tried before you ended up here?
It was a version of this, I would say. I think, I mean, I was looking back at some of my old stuff recently when we started talking, but it was, it's just a craft you work on. Looking back on some old stuff, it was definitely, you could see where I was like who I was inspired by or like trying to emulate and learning from in a way. So like certain artists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, you kind of take less inspiration from other people and maybe more from experiences or, just nature or whatever it is,
Yeah, because does it get like frustrating at the beginning when you're doing that and you have this vision in your head of like what you want it to look like, and then you're like, why can't I make it like that?
Yeah, I think it's probably kind of like singing too, or something like that, where you're like, I know what I want it to sound like, but my voice isn't there yet, or something. So it's the kind of same thing. Is like I can picture everything, but it's just going to take a lot longer to render it or get it there. And that's why like the eraser is my favorite tool out of anything. I like drawing pencil and paper, paint, and everything else, but the eraser seems to be the
go-to.
Yeah, the one that really helps out the most.
Yeah, and so with your art and stuff, you do a lot of different things. You've done like branding for like musicians and stuff. Like you've done like artwork for them. You've done clothing, murals, painting. Like it seems like you've done it all. Is there a specific medium that you enjoy the most out of everything that you've done?
I think just like drawing characters is really fun to me, because then you can kind of create the story around them. There's like a fantasy to it.
Yeah.
I think there's something nice about creating apparel, because then you can see it out in the world. Like someone could be wearing it. Like,
right.
A couple of weeks ago, I saw a guy wearing one of my t-shirts that I made probably a good 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had never seen someone out in the wild wearing it. And then I saw this guy. I didn't even say hi to him or anything. I just like watched it go by, and I was
took a little
like,
picture quick.
It was just, like a cool experience that way. So I think that's kind of cool. Animation's fun.
Yeah,
it's
I saw you
definitely
do that.
super complicated, and I'd rather work with an animator than do the animation myself. But like, there's this like this really cool thing about seeing your stuff move and come to life. So I don't know. I think there's like a certain enjoyment in each kind, but I definitely like I think painting has been the one that where I feel most comfortable. Like,
Sure.
there's this like snapshot that I can create. It's super colorful.
Yeah.
And there's all the layers and everything. Where like screen printing is fun. I like making prints and posters and stuff like that. But there's a reduction to it also that happens where only 2 colors or only 3 colors.
Sure.
So something about painting is I can go as wild as possible, kind of.
Yeah, and you've done like live painting and stuff like that too. And is there something because with live painting it's like you have like what 3 hours to like do this and then you're done?
Yeah, sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's 4. There's something nice about having that
constraint,
the time limit. It's almost like a kick in the butt of like, well, whatever happens kind of thing. Like, sometimes it's nice to show up with a sketch for something like that. But like showing up with completely no plan is kind of fun because then it's let's just see what happens.
Yeah, because is there like an overthinking thing that happens with art sometimes where it's just like you've thought about this too much?
Yeah, definitely.
And you can't you can't do it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that happens with client work or personal projects where there's no real deadline. There's this like,
I could do this forever.
The sky's the limit sort of thing. So like I could just pontificate and think about this as much as I want. Right. So like that 3-hour time limit is like, well, just you got to make something happen. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, because is there a specific piece that you have created that you like the most out of those like really small time constraints? Like, is there a specific piece you can remember that you're like, wow, this is like, I really like this a lot?
There was a piece I drew or painted up in a live painting setting. It's called Demon Day Off. So it's like a devil wearing the Rocco's Modern Life or like button-up shirt that he's wearing.
Yeah.
Or it's like close to it.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's kind of that like my play on overthinking. Your head's kind of like on fire sort of thing where you like have too many thoughts going on.
Yeah.
But you're also like on your day off at the same time. It's like that like weird juxtaposition of like you can't really turn it off. What
challenges have you faced like with art specifically, and like have you had any of those like those artists like breakdowns of like, who am I? What am I doing?
Yeah, I think definitely that's happened. I think there's something to be said about having like a healthy lifestyle at the same time. Yeah, and that's something I'm like discovering now.
Like a balance.
Finding that balance. And I think early on when I was like freelancing on top of working a day job and like getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, like that's after a while that takes a toll on you. So like those are definitely moments where like you're trying to hit deadlines for work all day long and then come home and work till 3 a.m. and then go back and do it all again. Is like, I think those are when those like breakdowns start to happen of like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Or like, is this sustainable sort of thing? So I think your thought process changes a lot when you're in those like dark moments of tiredness and sort of like a weird mental state.
So going back to like your college days and stuff, and kind of, first of all, why'd you start with architecture? Was that something that you were always interested in, or like? I mean, I like architecture too. I think it's cool, like buildings and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, some people say it's like one of the most realist forms of art because I don't know, like the human interaction with it, and then how long it stands the test of time, sort of thing. And in high school, I did a lot of CAD design, and, like mechanical engineering stuff. Yeah. And I grew up in a family of like lawyers and engineers. Wow. So there was not necessarily pressure, but like definitely like an influence of like, this might be a way to take your life and career. Right.
Was it like a more of a quote unquote real job? You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
Like this is a 9 to 5. You show up and you do your work and you know, you go home.
I mean, when I was applying for schools and stuff, I applied to Marquette and Purdue and a lot of those like mechanical engineering sort of situations.
Sure.
And I did a lot of CAD in high school. So it was kind of like a natural progression. I mean, at the time I was playing music and stuff. So like, I was like, I'm going to quit everything. I want to play music.
Yeah.
And that was like when I started to realize like creativity and art was like important to me, where I was like, I would quit everything to do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you kind of have to think about the future and what a career looks like. But I was also young and naive at the time.
Right.
So, architecture seemed like a good option and still creative at the same time.
Sure.
But then as I got into it, I did that for like 2 years. And then as I got into it, I started to discover photography and like other creative outlets other than just playing music. So it kind of transformed my view of what a career could look like, or what you know, like what is inspiring to me.
Yeah, because like when you're doing art and stuff, and this is going to sound like a really dumb question, but like when you're doing, like when you're in the zone, like say when you're doing this mural, or when you're doing like when you're creating art at like Rogue Gallery for like 4 hours and doing a live painting, what do you like? What is your headspace at? Is it like therapeutic for you? Are you just thinking of nothing and just kind of going, or are you just like going a mile a minute and just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So like in a situation like working on a mural, a lot of the creativity is done ahead of time. So like all the sketching and planning and concept, that's a conversation with the client or whatever ahead of time to get everything approved. And then once you're on the wall, it's almost just like
you're just going
the process, just getting it done, fill it in. There's still, you know, like opportunity to like fix things and have creativity on the wall, but it's like a lot of it's maybe already figured out.
Sure.
Whereas like live painting, you know, like it's all in the moment. So I think the headspace for here is just kind of like a get in the zone and just find that like flow state sort of thing.
Sure.
Which there's a flow state to the creative side of like live painting or something, but there's also that like voice that's like, do this, do that, do this, change this, you know, like, but you could do this instead, you know, like, so there's like almost like you have to like rein it in when you're doing live stuff. Yeah. You know, like try to settle on something. Otherwise, kind of like what we were talking about, otherwise you could just go forever sort of
right. Because is it like when you're doing that, is it distracting that people are walking around and looking and like talking to you? Like, is it harder to do it in that setting?
I mean, it could be. Sometimes it depends on like how you're feeling that day kind of thing. If you're feeling particularly social or antisocial, which, you know, it happens. I think though, the reason I do like live painting is that ability to like interact with the community or people. Sometimes, it's like, sometimes it's drunk people at a bar, or sometimes it's people at a festival and they're like with their children. And so you're like, you could be inspiring kids or something. So there's this like, I don't know, there's something nice about that. There, you know, people are like, oh, I used to paint in high school, or so they're kind of like reliving some of their happy moments by watching you. So it's, I think it's, I like it.
Yeah, you talk about inspiration. Like, what inspires you?
I think it's just like being open to anything that comes by. You know, it could be like a bug flying in your eye, and like that's okay. I'm gonna draw a bug flying in like a dude's eye. Or it could be like a repetition of windows, or like just the way the wind's blowing flowers. I mean, really, it's just like being open to. It's almost, you know, like just being a net, waiting for something to kind of fly into your net. Yeah,
is that a mindset that you've always had? You just kind of walk around and like kind of an openly.
Sometimes, I mean, like it depends again on your mindset, because sometimes you can get like too caught up in trying to have an idea or something. And I think that's where I get caught up a lot, is when I'm trying to force something.
How do you mitigate that? Like, how do you figure that? Like, how do you get through that when you are trying to like force something or trying to like force an idea?
I think a lot that happens a lot when I'm, you know, maybe more on a commission or like a client project or something where there's like a defined need or something. So like you can, you know, do like word banks or things like this, where just like try to empty your brain of like anything that's going on, like any words related to the situation, or just put pencil to paper and see what happens. Like just let it flow if possible. Yeah, because I was gonna ask, is there any sort of like judgment towards yourself, like when you're doing art? You know what I mean? Like, were you ever at a point where you were like drawing stuff, you're like, well, that sucks, or like that's a bad idea? Is there a time that doesn't happen? No, I feel like there's always like a, you know, your own filtration process sort of thing. Yeah. And I don't know if other people are the same way, but it's like you're always kind of trying to push your own gap. So there's, you know, you kind of always have to shed stuff. You know, like ways you were doing things. Like maybe you draw eyes differently now, or that, you know, like there's just like a constant evolution of your own thought process, but also, you know, drawing style. Yeah, because I feel like if I was, you know, I'm really bad at drawing, but I feel like my problem would be like, if I got into a certain headspace, I would start drawing stuff and I'd be like, well, that sucks. And I could never like get past like any sort of stage, because I would stop at a certain point, you know? Well, yeah, I think I mean, you could like relate it to, I don't know, playing basketball or something. Yeah. Where like, if you're missing shots or something, you're not going to be able to like get in that comfort zone of where you will be just feeling, you know, the shot. You know, there's like an art to that too, of like
sure.
just like relaxing into it. So I think it's kind of the same thing. Yeah, you can get caught up and frustrated.
Yeah. Because I want to talk about more of the animation stuff. Do you do the animation like of the stuff that's like on your website? Is that all you?
Most of it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think.
I mean, that's really, it's good. It's like really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, I've collaborated with some friends. Like one of my buddies, Jesse. He did this piece I did a while back where it was a guy taking a bite out of the planet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I saw that
I think that's cool too. Is like to see. Like I just drew the character, and then he was like, "Do you mind if I animate that?" So then like, it was his vision. You know, he saw it happening a certain way. So that was kind of cool. Whereas like, you know, when I think about it, like I do my storyboards or whatever, and then create my own vision of it. But like, it's just cool that someone else can interact with your piece entirely differently.
Right, and I kind of spin it in their own creative way too.
Mm-hmm.
Has that ever been an interest of yours to like have an animated, show or something with like characters that you have created?
Yeah. So when I kind of started out working under the name Bigshot Robot, it kind of started out as like a storytelling clothing brand. So the characters in the short story I was creating ended up on the t-shirts and things. Okay. So the story started out with a scientist and then a bear that was being abducted by aliens. Okay. And he gained self-awareness by coming in contact with the aliens. Okay. So in my mind, that story was going to be kind of like an Adult Swim sort of like, now that Rick and Morty's out, something kind of like that, where they interact that way and go into interstellar space and stuff like that, which could still be an option. Yeah. But yeah, I've always kind of wanted to create a more long form story that way. Yeah. Is that where Bigshot Robot came from? Was that like the concept of the show or the title of the show? Yeah, it was the title of kind of like one of the characters. So the bear eventually didn't understand, you know, he gained self-awareness, so he didn't really understand everything yet, and he got frustrated, and he created this giant robot to then like fight back. There's a lot of other details in there, but so that robot was kind of his representation of his ego and not understanding it yet. So it was the Bigshot Robot sort of thing. Like, and then it kind of stuck after that. Yeah, because I was gonna. Why'd you stick with that instead of going with your actual name when you create? I think at that point it was just like it was kind of easier to have something a little more memorable. My name is, I like it, but it's pretty common. David and Zimmerman are both very common names, so like kind of working under those names maybe would leave less of a fantasy feeling. So like plus you know, like robots and things like that I'm interested in space and futuristic stuff. So like it just kind of already sets you in that mindset of like being ready for something weird or fantastic. Do you think like, because we were talking about your style and stuff and how it kind of morphed into what it is, do you think it's important to have a specific style as an artist? Like, you think about like even, you know, other people that do murals. I don't know who does a koi fish. Do you know who does that? Jeremy Novoy or Novi. The guy, in Milwaukee with the koi fish on there. He's now all over. I think he was down in Portland. I saw. In Portland. I think he was down in New Orleans for a while too. Okay. So he's taken that everywhere, and I think there's something to be said for that. Of like, it depends on what you get out of your own art. So there's like process-driven art, you know, where it's just like this sort of like repetition of a concept, but like it's about the way you're creating it versus like conceptually where, you know, like I'm trying to maybe put a story into something, then the characters are driving that story versus how you created that. Right, how you created it. Like some of the newer stuff I've been doing too is like pattern based, or like almost like just trying to turn emotions into shapes and colors and stuff. So like relying less on maybe a storyline or something, but like looking more internally. So maybe that's what other people get out of it when they're doing it in that kind of way. It's like they just enjoy the process of creating. So maybe that's where, you know, like where his inspiration comes from. Because I was always curious about that. Like you know how Banksy is huge, obviously, and there's a specific way that he goes about, you know, his art and stuff. Are there artists that just kind of create in a lot of different styles? Is that a thing that happens? I don't actually know. I think so, but I think on a commercial level, or like if you're trying to turn it into a career or something, it becomes a lot harder. It becomes easier to gain clientele
I guess,
when they know what they're going to get every time. So like if you continue to create something similar, they can be like, oh, I want that.
I want to look like that.
Yeah.
Rather than you making like 8 different types of something.
Otherwise, it's like, what am I going to get, sort of thing. So,
right.
So I mean, as a career, I mean, obviously you could do however you want. You know, like if you're an artist and you just want to have fun and create in a bunch of different ways, that's cool.
Yeah.
And you know, it's part of exploration too, and that's why like I've been trying to explore patterns and things like that too.
Yeah.
Because it expands the conversation you can have then too.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's really one way to do it.
Right. I mean, it's art, you know, you can do it any way you want, pretty much.
True.
That's the cool thing about it.
And I think for me, part of it is like I do illustration, but also this sort of like exploration of emotion at the same time. So it's like kind of smashing editorial illustration in with this sort of like personal creativity. And then you get like a little bit of both.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that because that sounds really interesting. So like when you're like doing this right now and creating like patterns and things to explore like emotion, are those like, for example, like anger or like disappointment, like how do you, what's the process that you go through to like put that on?
I think in those situations, it's just kind of like
what you feel.
Yeah. I mean, you almost get like sharper feelings from maybe, you know, like aggression or something like that. So it becomes more of maybe a lightning bolt, you know, something sharp and aggressive versus like love where it's like bouncy or you know, like softer or shiny or, you know, like I think it really just kind of relates to those like when you fall into your soft bed, you know, you get this like feeling of comfort and like clouds and stuff like that. So it's like bouncier and lighter. Yeah. But if you're like upset or disappointed or something, it could become, you know, it's color choice too. So you can choose like darker grays or like a different type of color palette to like help say that as well.
Yeah. Are there certain pieces that you create, talking about emotions and stuff? Are there certain pieces that you create that you're more attached to than others? Like, is there stuff that you make that holds deeper in your heart or something without sounding too cheesy?
No, there's definitely like pieces that become I'm closer with or feel better about. I think, you know, it depends on what in that moment you were thinking about or like the purpose of that piece.
Is there one you can think of, for example, like that off the top of your head that kind of hits a core more with you?
Yeah, I think there was a piece I did a while back, and it was one of the first like shapy pieces I did, where it was like more of a pattern-based painting. Yeah. And I think that was just because I feel like I hit something where I was like, oh, this is a new way I can talk, right? Or a new way I can, you know, portray a feeling or something. So it was like, for me, that was like a turning point in how I can make stuff. Yeah.
Because what with you, were you someone that, when you were growing up or even, you know, a younger person, was it hard for you to like get out emotions or like anything like that? Or was it hard for you to communicate and you like communicated through creativity more? Yeah. Was that something that happened?
I think writing was a thing that helped me early on. I like words a lot. And that's why I like storytelling kind of made sense a little bit. But especially with music and, you know, like writing lyrics and things like that, you know, maybe they weren't all great, but it was like a journal, a way to like express those feelings without like, you know, talking to someone. Like that's where like maybe a lot of people get feelings out, is like just conversations with people. But like maybe when you don't have that outlet or the right person to talk to, those like feelings would resonate with, like putting them into words. I think was like an early on way that I was able to do that. Yeah.
So do you have those journals and stuff so that you used to write in? Do you ever pull like...
Oh, wow. I bet they're in my parents' basement or something. Like there's probably some pretty bad lyrics somewhere.
Because I was interested if like any of that stuff subconsciously turned into art later on, you know, like the journaling or like stuff.
Sure, passages, like thematically or something.
That you just like, you drew something about it later.
I bet you know, there's some like core roots of things that like led to other like visual representations. Yeah. So... What in your estimation, we talked about this a little bit, like what is like the most challenging thing for you when you're creating like a piece? Is it like the initial thought process and concept, or is that pretty easy for you? You usually just kind of, is it easy to come up with an idea, or like, is it harder to execute or figure out which medium you want to use, you know? Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of easy to have a lot of ideas. I think that's because I've practiced that over time. I've just like opened up that faucet and like just let it kind of go. So like there's always an idea.
It's almost like too many ideas.
Yeah, kind of, you know, sometimes there is, and it's like you struggle to get them all down, or like, so it's almost like fishing in a way, you know, like there's 10 fish there, but you can only maybe catch one sort of thing. Right, yeah. And you kind of just have to dedicate your time to reel in that one idea. And this fishing metaphor is coming out of nowhere, but it seems like it's working.
It's doing well.
But no, I think like a struggle is sometimes like that pushing things to the finish line of like, is this really where it should end? Or do I feel comfortable with how it's ending? Or like, I'm just tired. I don't want to finish, you know, like, or something like that, you know? I think that's where maybe my personal struggle ends up, is like just pulling things to the finish line sometimes.
Right, because you could be doing this forever. Like you could have been at this mural still. Like I could have found you here. Like
still I know, like my skeleton just like laying here.
You're still going.
But no, you know, like that's what like deadlines are really nice with, especially on client work or working in collaborations. Is like we just need to have it done. So let's put a deadline on it. You know, like there's a finish line.
Yeah. So what has been your proudest moment that you have had, or one of them as an artist so far?
So it's gonna go way back to like early on when I first started sharing my drawings on Tumblr.
Oh, really?
Like way back, you know, like 7-8 years ago or whatever. And I would give away free stickers. Like if people would send an envelope to my P.O. box, I would send stickers back out to them. And one time I received a letter back. Usually it was just like, you know, cool, people got stickers and then whatever. But one time I received a letter back from a kid and his sister, and they're from Chicago, and they said that getting these stickers inspired them to make their own. So they sent me their stickers back, and they were like little you know, like on the USPS stickers, they drew up their own little stickers and sent them back. And they were like, my sister's name is Banana Face and my name is Donut Face, and we wanted to share our stickers with you. Wow. And it was like that moment where I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like what I do can have an effect on someone, or like push someone to try doing their own passion, or, you know. So I think more than any like project or anything, at that moment was like, this is a conversation I can have with people all the time. So I think that moment was like a really proud moment. Yeah, because
I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but like murals like this, I think is another thing. When people see this, like I'm sure like this is inspiring as hell to me. Like this is cool. Like it makes you want to like create things, and like doing things out in public, I'm sure has a similar effect on people too. I mean, they just don't directly probably communicate with you, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
sometimes maybe.
To that point, I was like, when I was working on the Black Cat Alley piece, my friend Stacy brought me in on that project, and that was like the first time I did an outdoor project. And when I was creating that, it was a year anniversary from when they started it. So there were already a bunch of murals in the alley, and then I was adding to it. So the alley was already active. People were like walking through. So while I was working on it, there were all these people from the community, or whoever at like Collectivo or whatever, walking, you know, the neighborhood, and they would stop and just talk to me while I was working on it. It's kind of similar to the like live art, where, you know, where people would stop and talk in the bar or something. But like this was cool because they were like, thank you for adding to our community, or like beautifying our neighborhood, or so like that like opportunity to like see someone directly affected is like, it's pretty cool. Is
there any specific conversations you can remember having with someone at like a live painting or something that like that they were inspired by you, or thought something you were doing was cool?
There was one time a girl came up, and she was so inspired in the moment that she grabbed the paintbrush out of my hand and started painting on the canvas.
On your cat, like what you were doing? Wow. What do you do with that situation?
I mean, I just kind of like, I like let it happen. You know, you can always paint over stuff.
That's a nice thing about paint.
But yeah, I was definitely taken aback a little bit.
Wow.
But, you know, people see what they want to do and sometimes just go for it. So it's kind of cool, you know.
Was she sober doing that?
She was not sober.
I was gonna say, that's a really bold sober move. So I want to kind of take it back to when you first got into. Do you remember the first piece in college or that you created when you kind of transitioned from photography and architecture to graphic design? Do you remember like a piece that you created?
There was a couple,
Yeah. what was your like initial feeling when you like finished those pieces? Like, oh, this is something that I can do. Like, oh, this is really cool. Because at that point, were you drawing still like a lot, even though you were in architecture?
No, I was starting to draw right then. Like the last year of college, I was starting to like realize illustration was a cool way to use like printmaking.
Okay, sure.
So in one of my photography classes, I drew with chalk on one of the chalkboards, just like a little bear character that I was working on.
Yeah.
And like I came back 2 days later for my next class, and someone had added their like a character to it.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was like, oh, cool. You know, it was just like, there was just this like interaction, and I didn't know who it was. And then all of a sudden there was like this bigger piece, and it became, a weird thing. But a piece I did for myself was like my senior thesis. It was like that creation of the Bigshot Robot and those characters. So starting that story and like really giving into like storytelling in a way.
Yeah. What did you do to like help transition into more of freelancing? Like what steps did you take, or like what strategy did you use like to get more clients and do more things? Did you just get out more? Or
I think just like live painting was a huge start for that for me. It was like talking to people about what I'm doing,
right?
Or just like people seeing that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But like with the rise of like social media platforms and things, that allowed me to have conversations with people that weren't directly next to me, you know, like in person. So it started showing people outside of my personal circle that this is what I do, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So bridging that gap with strangers and art directors and other people out there that are doing this. And I think a real big thing, like something I did early on, was I would just like send emails to people of like, what am I doing? Like, am I doing this right? How do you do this? Or like, especially Brett Stenson, he's out in Portland now, but he was from Milwaukee. He's an incredibly talented illustrator. But I would email him probably every 6 months of like, hey, help me. Like, and then one time he came and gave a talk here at Anodyne in Walker's Point. And I was able to meet him finally for the first time. And he was like the nicest person. So like, I was always like really nervous that I was like bugging him and sending him all these emails, but he was just like a nice guy and was like ready to help out. So I think more often than not, it's like people are ready to help. It's this community that everybody's trying to build, and like, don't be afraid to like reach out to an idol or someone that might be able to give you like this little gold nugget of like how to progress.
Right. Yeah. With your art personally and like doing stuff, not for clients or for anyone else, but just like for yourself. Do you sell like your paintings and stuff like that?
Yeah. Sometimes. I mean, everything's for sale. But I like doing commissions and stuff, because then it's like this sort of like this, you know, this is going to live in someone's home. Yeah, and that's cool. It's what they want. But definitely like all the live pieces or other paintings I do that are just like sitting in the studio or something, you know, those are definitely for sale. Yeah, because I was going to ask, where can people go to like contact you if they wanted to like do a commission or anything like that? The best way to have a conversation is through email with me. Okay. Best way to keep up with what I'm doing is on my Instagram. Yeah. That's the one I just gravitate towards. Sure. Keeping updated the most. And then on my website is like a good collection of some of the stuff I've already done. Yeah. And is your website Bigshot? Is there a hyphen? Yeah, bigshot-robot.com. But I think bigshotrobot.com will get you there also. Oh, cool. I have both of them. So. Oh, nice. Yeah. You got them all. And then your Instagram is just Bigshot Robot, right? Yep. Okay. All one word. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's definitely stuff to check out. Like on your Instagram, you're very active. You know, you post stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just think you're a really cool creative, and I'm happy that you sat in lawn chairs with me for 40 minutes in this hot heat. So, thanks for coming on, man. Absolutely. Yeah. This is great.